Today's guest has made a positive impact on 4 of our area schools. We'll talk with Rusty Tondee right after this.
Welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast, covering local sports in the Southwest Georgia area, creating content that is factual, positive, and informative, promoting efforts by athletes, coaches, and sports administrators. Now, here's your host, Tim Estes.
Hello, and thank you for making the Integrity Sports Podcast a part of your weekly routine, where we discuss sports-related topics in the Southwest Georgia area. Let me remind you, if you're watching on Facebook today, please hit the like and share. That's how we get our viewership up. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Our guest today is Rusty Tondee, and man, you want to talk about a guy that has had a positive impact on several area schools. This is your guy. Rusty, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for those kind words, Tim. It's great to be here.
Rusty, I guess you and I first met each other back in the 83-84 school year. You were, I think, doing your student teaching at the time at America's High School, and that was my freshman year there. And you and I just hit it off. We've kind of been friends since then. But what I want you to do to start off with is let's give our watching audience just a rundown of your professional career from that time right after you graduated from Georgia Southwestern up to the present time.
Well, Tim, I started out, as you said, I did my student teaching over with Coach Alton Shell, a legend in Georgia high school football. Another legend that was there that I got the opportunity to meet and work with was Coach Doug Parrish. Coach Parrish is a legend in his own right. Got to later work with Doug Parrish again at Tri-County, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And also got to work with David Cochran, got to work with 3 really great educators and 3 great football coaches. I got to start there. Then straight out of college, another legend that I have had the opportunity and the privilege to work with, Melvin Kinslow at Southland Academy. I don't know what he saw in a young guy who was eager to work and eager to get on the field and coach whatever I was given the opportunity to do. And Coach Kinslow invested in me that year, and I coached from before school started till after school ended that year, and then was given an opportunity by my former head baseball coach, Mike McGlon. He had gotten the head coaching job at Tri-County that year in the football program, and he invited me to come over and told me, said, "Hey, look, if you'll come back and be my assistant in baseball for 1 year, I'll turn it over to you and let you be the head baseball coach, because I know that's what you've always dreamed of." And that was my dream. And so I went to Tri-County, served as the head baseball coach for 5 years, the head track coach for 5 years, and then just made a decision it was time to move on, and moved on back home to Ellaville before Sly County High School was ever built. I was there for 3 years. I ran the middle school program there in Ellaville. And then we had a great opportunity that has blossomed into an amazing program and academic school of excellence. And I was privileged to be there at the beginning of starting Sly County High School. I kid when people ask me about it. I was the first head football coach. I was the first head baseball coach. I was the first athletic director. I was the first grass cutter, the first window cleaner, the first potty cleaner, the first everything. And I spent 19 wonderful, amazing years there at Sly County, and then got to my 30-year time and decided, after being in administration for 14 or 15 years, it's time to kind of go into the sunset and go into retirement, maybe try something different, to try, something outside of education. And lo and behold, 3 days after I retired, another Kinslow entered my life. Ty Kinslow called me, said, "Hey, look, I hear there's a rumor going around saying that you retired." And I told him, "Well, you're absolutely right. That's not a rumor. That's fact." And he had just hired one of my former baseball players at Tri-County, Rod Murray, as the head football coach. And Ty asked, "Hey, would you come over here and help Coach Murray in his first head coaching job and kind of be by his side and help him out and be an assistant and help us out here and maybe teach some classes if you don't mind. And he gave me that opportunity 9 years ago. We're 9 years into a second career in education, still helping kids, coaching and teaching and just being parts of their lives. And probably what I consider my most important job is sharing Christ with them. To be able to be here in class and to be able to teach the Word of God and to teach the principles of Christ and salvation, to be able to do that through my teaching experience here, I feel like in the 39 years I've spent in education, that has been the most satisfying part of mine, has been to be able to share with sixth graders who are just on the cusp of, making that decision and really learning what it takes to have a relationship with Christ and the salvation through Jesus. And, that's been my most rewarding part of my entire career, Tim, to be honest with you.
So, Rusty, what I want to do today is kind of go through your career and let you talk specifically about the stops, and we'll get back to Southland Academy on the back end. But after that first year at Southland, you got an opportunity that a lot of folks don't get. You got to go back to your alma mater. You graduated from Tri-County High School, which at the time was a great school. Let's throw the cards on the table. What they did there with those three county schools was really, really good for a long time. But you got a chance to go home. Talk some about that experience, that decade that you spent there at Tri-County.
Well, Tim, it was an amazing experience. I'll tell you, like you said, anytime you get a chance to go back home, I graduated from there. I loved my experience as a student there. I graduated in 1979. I loved every minute. I loved my friends from the different counties, from Webster County, from Marion County, and even outside of there from Stewart County and a few from Sumter County. And the experience as a student was amazing. So when I had the opportunity to go back and work with and for my former baseball coach and former assistant football coach, who basically was in charge of me because I was a quarterback and I was a defensive back, and Coach McGlone was a running backs and quarterbacks coach and a defensive backs coach. When I had an opportunity to go to work with them, with Coach McGlone and Bland Brooks and Dr. Howard Henley, who was in his first year. He and I got there at Tri-County the very first year, and have the opportunity to work with Dr. Howard Henley under his leadership. It was just too good to be true. So I had to jump on it. Listen, don't get me wrong. It was hard leaving Southland that 1 year. It was a very difficult decision to make. Everybody here, Mr. Kinslow, Coach Lloyd, everyone here, Lovern McMichael, who was the head football coach, they treated me so wonderfully good. I couldn't have been treated better. It was an extremely difficult decision to make. But the pathway for me to become a head coach, a head baseball coach, was open at my alma mater, and I had to take it, and I did. And long story short, the last day I left campus here at Southland Academy that day, I was in an office with Coach Wallace Lloyd all year long. His desk and my desk butted up, and we faced each other as far as being in our office. And I saw Coach Lloyd every day. He was like my father. My father passed away that spring, and Coach Lloyd, if it hadn't been for Coach Lloyd there to be with me during that time, I'm not really sure I would have made it. He was such a father figure to me and such a great guy. And the last day, I had to pack up all my stuff in my box, my last few boxes, and I was going to walk out. I was going to try to sneak out, to be honest with you, so I didn't have to face Coach Lloyd when I was leaving. And as I was about to sneak out, I had my box in my hand, and I turned around, and he stood there at the door. And we stared at each other what seemed to be like a million years, but it was probably only about 20 seconds. And I just walked by him. I said goodbye, got in the truck, and I cried like a baby all the way home.
Yeah. And
then my career at Tri-County started. It was amazing to be able to go over and coach baseball. I love baseball. It's my first love, always will be. I love college football. I love high school football. I love baseball. Is always it's what I grew up on, a lot like you.
Yeah.
And, and so I had that passion to coach baseball and did. And then an opportunity came to transition into another sport that they needed at that time. And so went to track. You talk about somebody who's lucky. I was born under a lucky star when that did happen. Even though I love baseball, I was able to take over a track program, a boys track program that included 2 individuals that signed Division I college track scholarships, one at LSU, one at University of Georgia. And I didn't know anything about track.
Hey, they always say what makes a good coach is great players, and you certainly had that.
I believe that. Listen, my only job of coaching was making sure on meet days to make sure Paul Blue and Michael Aldridge were on the bus when we left. I turned them loose after that. They made me look like I knew what I was doing. Truthful was, I just got them on the bus and got them there.
Yeah, hey,
but that turned out really well.
Let me tell you, one of the other things I want to talk about Tri-County was we're here talking about the impact that you've had on people, and you certainly have. But one of the things I want to make sure we hit on is folks that made an impact on you along the way, and now you're pressing that forward. And you mentioned a guy, Mike McGlawn, and I remember Mike when I was growing up playing baseball against him. And if I'm not mistaken, now you get the opportunity to coach his grandson. Is that right?
Well, I taught his grandson, didn't have the opportunity to coach him. Currently, a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact, it was a couple of springs ago, this 60-year-old body just kind of wore out riding on school buses, Tim. And I just finally had to say, went to Dr. Collins and said, hey, look, I can't do this coaching anymore. Getting home from Valdosta on a Tuesday night at 11:30 and then getting up and go to work the next day and riding that bus for 2.5 hours, it just really wore me down. So I went to Dr. Collins and told him, listen, I need to get out of the coaching. I'll continue teaching for you, but I've got to get out of the coaching. And but as you mentioned, I didn't have a chance to. I taught Cade. Cade is the grandson of Mike McGlawn. Big old boy, too. Big old boy that can play football and baseball. But Coach Mike McGlawn, you see him on campus every day. He comes to watch Cade play, practice, or whatever. And, I get to speak to my old coach, just about on a daily basis. And that's really a privilege for me to be able to talk to a guy who shaped me, who shared Christ with me, who reinforced Christian principles to me as a high schooler. Now, I'm not going to promise that those soaked in all the time as a high schooler, but that probably happens to a lot of people. But Coach McGlawn had a major impact on my life.
So, Rusty, you spent a decade there at Tri-County, and then you actually grew up in Ellaville, and
Mayberry.
Mayberry. I've called it that many times.
Yeah.
You move over to the Sly County system, as you mentioned, before Sly County High School started. So you really got in on the ground floor. But man, what a juggernaut that's turned into, both academically and athletically.
Yeah, I tell you, nobody could have ever dreamed what is turned into. Now, we all had a pretty good idea, and it wasn't really, that we hated Tri-County, or people in Sly County hated Tri-County at the time, because it was a great opportunity. Believe me, it offered a lot of opportunities for kids in 3 counties would have never had, not only on the athletic field, football wise and things like that, but the vocational classes and stuff like that that were offered through the combined high school. It offered a wonderful opportunity for so many kids in those rural counties that would have never had those opportunities. But then we the people of Sly County decided, by law, Marion County couldn't allow a board member from Sly County to serve on their board of education. And a lot of people took offense to that. And there was nothing really Marion County could do. They would have to get a state charter change from the legislature, and that probably wasn't going to happen. So people at Sly County said, you know what, we're missing a lot. This community misses a lot by not having our own high school here. And there was a groundswell. Not going to say it was overwhelming, because I believe the vote didn't pass but about 100 votes. And that's pretty close at the time, when the bond referendum was voted on. But it passed. a few of us got together, decided, we kind of formed our little leadership team to decide how we're going to do this, what we're going to do, what is our mission, what's going to be our goal, how we're going to go about this. I mean, even as important as the location of the school down to the school colors and the mascots, and I was in on that. My thing on that was my addition was the Wildcats. So we met as a small group. I said, hey, look, if you want to be like a champion, you got to be like a champion. We might as well be like the Valdosta Wildcats and aspire excellence like them. And, so that started, and the awesome opportunity to be on the ground floor, to be in on the planning of everything about the school, getting the booster clubs started to help build the facilities, which now have since been upgraded. And there is finer facilities in Class A that you'll find anywhere. It's been amazing. We started out with Mr. Larry Stubbs as the principal. And of course, he set the academic standards that we were going to live up to, and they haven't faltered at all. And we continue to be a great school system academically wise, but and athletically. In every area, and there may have been spurts and there may have been little times of success and times of being down, but, overall, it's been a pretty big success, Tim.
Yeah. And then, you spend 2 decades basically there. You retire as the principal there at Sly County High School. And like you said earlier, man, things just came back full circle, and you get that call from Ty Kinslow. And now you get to be at Southland Academy, where it all started, every day. That's got to be a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. And, Ty decided to change professions a couple of years ago. And so I'm here with Dr. Larry Collins. And so it is, it's, I keep telling people that, they ask me, so how long are you going to stay in and how long are you going to do this? And I don't know, but I know this, Melvin Kinslow gave me my first job. Ty Kinslow gave me my last one. And my grandson is here. My granddaughter, Tyner, my grandson, my granddaughter, Caroline, will be going to school. Actually, Tyner's here already. He's in 4K. Caroline will start next year. She'll be in 3K. So I'm sure me and Miss Tracy, who they call Honey, will be involved in Southland in some way for quite the few years in the future. But what they've given me the opportunity to do here is amazing. I'll tell you, Tim, just reflecting back over my 39 years we're about to be in education, every place I worked, every job I had, I worked with the most amazing people that you could ever ask for. I've got friends and I know people who are miserable in their jobs. They don't like the people they work with. They don't like the people they work for. They don't like the situation they're in. And I've got to tell you this, God, the Lord has blessed me so richly, so undeservedly. I don't deserve all this. He has blessed me with the opportunity to work in places, to be associated with people like yourself. Bless me that I have just worked with the most amazing people, that I love my job. Everywhere I go, I love my job. I love my people. And, and it's worked out so wonderful in every spot that I can't describe how lucky and how blessed I feel by what the Lord has put me into every time he's put me somewhere.
Well, Coach, we've talked Southland, we've talked Sly County, we've talked Tri-County. Something that a lot of folks are starting to know you as is the voice of Hurricane basketball at GSW. Unfortunately, the situation that put you in that was the loss of our good friend Ricky Burgess. But I don't think they could have picked a better replacement. And I know Ricky had a big impact on you and me and helped us in our broadcast career. But, boy, you've done such a good job over the last, 4 or 5 years. But what I want you to talk about is your role as the voice of Hurricane basketball, and talk a little bit about some of the relationships you've been able to build in that role.
Well, I'll tell you, it's like you said, I hate the circumstances in which I was able to be thrust into that position. And you and I both know that Ricky Burgess was one of the most amazing human beings you could ever No, he was a best friend to all of us. He was a joy to be around, and I owe my opportunity to him. Early as we built Sly County, early in the history of Sly County, he asked me to join him as a sidekick at football games and playoff baseball games, and that kind of got me started into it. And then later on, as he was doing Georgia Southwestern, he would have to go to sporting goods show out in Las Vegas for a week or so, and there would be Southwestern games being played during that time. And I covered for him when he did that, and have evolved into doing it full time now. And it's fun. I'll be honest with you, Tim. I was really apprehensive about it at first. Baseball. You and I can do baseball in our sleep, backwards,
That's
upside down. Football, same thing. It's just I was so used to it. But basketball, it's so fast.
It's fast, Rusty. And let me tell you this: you asked me to cover a game for you this year,
yeah,
which I was glad to do, and I'll do anytime you want me to. But until you really know who those players are and can call their names out because of the number,
right?
Boy, it's tough. It really is. That game moves fast.
It does, and and I've done Southland's playoff games for the radio stations too. But to be honest with you, that's kind of my favorite to do right now. I mean, it's evolved into the point where I really love doing those games, and it's challenging to keep up with the ball as it's passed around and shot and transition takes place. And it scared me to death the first time I did it. I'm surprised I got anything out, to be honest with you, Tim. I was so frightful, but I don't know. It's just natural now.
Ricky taught me early in my broadcast career. He said, Tim, you don't have to call the play as it happens. People can't see what's going on. Just make sure you get it right. Well, now people can see it. They're watching it on YouTube, so that makes it even tougher.
You're right. And I got away with that for a little while. And not anymore. So you have to keep up with the action, and sometimes a few things get left out, and sometimes you get a little tongue tied. But again, it goes back to what you and I were talking about, the speed of the game on the college level like that. And so, but it's really evolved. I've developed a really great relationship with Keith Micklig and Coach Leader, who I already had a relationship with, being the principal and athletic director at Sly County when his kids went to Sly County, Michael and Alyssa, and of course his wife Jody being the counselor there at the elementary school. So I already had a relationship with Coach Leader, and I've gotten to know Coach Justin Payne and Coach Aaron Coombs really well, and can have conversations with them, and just a lot of people at Georgia Southwestern. It's my alma mater, so it makes me really proud to see them succeed now in the Peach Belt, to see the program, to see all of the improvements, the indoor hitting facility, the improvements to the soccer field, the softball field, the baseball stadium, the boards and all what they've done inside the Storm Dome. Just makes me really proud to be a Hurricane. Makes me even more proud to be able to call that game on the radio for Georgia Southwestern State University.
Absolutely. Today's program is being brought to you by our friends at the Shred Shed, and I think you know them, Rusty. That's Mike and Connie Gurley.
Oh, yeah.
And they provide professional document shredding at an affordable price. So if you're in need of shredding services, consider the Shred Shed right here in Americus. You can call them at 938-2520. Again, that's 938-2520. Rusty, it's been a pleasure to have you today. I want to wrap up with one final question. First of all, before we get to that, tell us a little bit about your family. Who's your wife, your kids, your grandkids, all that?
Well, I married my high school sweetheart. Some will say, well, you were in high school, she was in middle school. They were accused me of robbing the cradle, but I'm married to the former Tracy Lawhorn. Thing about that, we've been married. Let me get this right, Tim. 38 years come May. But the thing about that, we dated for 9.5 years before that. So we've been together basically for about 47 years in some way or another. We have two amazing sons who are married to two amazing women. Josh is my oldest son, and he is married to the former Katie Hendrickson. They have two sons, two kids, a son, Tyner, who is 5, Caroline, who's about to turn 3 in May. My youngest son is Tyler, and he's married to the former Adrian Polk. And they just gave birth to their first grandchild, Brooks Everett, back in November. And boy, it's been a joy to be around a baby again, I tell you. And my family is everything in this world to me, as yours is. Grandkid time, grandbaby time is more than anything ever said it was. And I know you know that also.
Absolutely.
There's nothing like having grandkids, but I have an amazing immediate family, but I also have an amazing family around us with my brother Shane, and of course, you know that story. My younger brother's married to my wife's younger sister, so I guess we officially qualify as hillbillies. But we have an amazing family. We have a big family, and it is family oriented, I can promise you.
And I tell you, somebody that's a transplant into the Sly County area, the Lawhorn and the Tondee families are icons in that area.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Tim. That's awfully nice to say.
Let's wrap things up this way, Rusty. You said you've been in education about 39 years now.
Yeah.
And, let's hope you got 5 or 10 more good years left in education. But as you look back over that time and people start thinking about Rusty Tondee, what do you want them to remember about you?
Well, Tim, I just want people to remember me by being totally committed in the involvement I had in whatever I was doing, no matter what it was. If it was a program at church or whether it was teaching or coaching or administrating, I want people to know that I was totally involved in the people, the mission, and the purpose in wherever I was, whether it be at one school, another school, or whatever it be, and know that I love the people that I worked with and worked around them. And the people, this whole life is about relationships. If you don't have relationships, you're not going to have a successful life. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to have, it's easy for people to be happy. Happy is circumstantial. But do you have joy? I have joy in my heart. I have joy with everything I've ever done because I developed so many relationships throughout the state of Georgia. I can go anywhere and I'll be standing in a restaurant somewhere and somebody will come over and say, hey, Coach Tondee, or hey, Rusty, or whatever. And it's purely through the relationships I built through my career in the school business. And so my wife said, well, how you know them? Well, they're from Houston County. I dealt with them in the school business, So, if people just remember me by knowing that everything I did, I tried to do the right way and to do it as your show says, to do it with integrity.
Well, Rusty, we appreciate you being with us. I tell you what, I will always remember about Rusty Tondee, and I've been watching you for these 39 years. And you've been a guy that I certainly would want to emulate in the way you've carried yourself and you walk the walk. You don't have to talk the talk when you walk the walk, and you've done that. And we appreciate the integrity that you've done it with for all these years. Thank you again for being with us.
Well, Tim, that's awfully nice for you to say, and I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. Thank you for having me.
Again, if you're watching today on Facebook, please hit the like button and share this with your friends. We build our viewership that way. One of the other areas we're trying to build up is our YouTube channel. So go to Integrity Sports Podcast on YouTube. Make sure and hit the subscribe button. We want to grow this thing more and more every week, every month, and you can help us to do that. Until next week, thanks for joining us. So long, everybody.